Hi everyone, welcome to episode 26 of This Valorant Life. In this episode, Adam and I are excited to go through what we're calling the ranked workout routine. Just like you have a workout routine to get jacked, we think it makes sense to look at what does a good Valorant workout routine look like? What is the schedule that you can commit to on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis that can help you have some structure, but also get you those much needed, much desired gains in RR. So with that, we're just going to start looking at this schedule. What level of importance do you think you would place on routine and having some type of structure in helping your clients? Like, what's been your experience?
I mean, it's probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing when working with someone, is understanding what their life demands are and then working around it, and then seeing where we can kind of slot in time to play the game and to get better. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but like one of the thresholds I try to aim for is like 15 games weekly. Like that, I think that's a good minimum amount. So just thinking about that going forward is how can you fit in 15 games a week and going from there.
Okay, well, maybe we'll do that first then. So like, let's fit in 15 games in this week. Is that kind of like one ranked block of 3 games is about 2.5 hours or 3 hours? Like, what would you put in?
Yeah, I would probably put a rank block at 3 hours just because I like to account for warm-up time. Like that includes like the whole session. Sometimes I'll go a little bit over. Sometimes I'll go a little bit shorter. But I think 3 hours is reasonable to fit most things in.
Okay.
For your rank block, yeah.
Okay, so I'm putting that in. And so so I'm putting it at like 4 to 7 p.m. on Monday. So okay, first off, we're going to do this for 2 different types of routine kind of schedules or constraints. One is, I think this is going to apply to most of the people who watch this podcast, which is what should this look like, or what does a hypothetical one look like if you go to school? So we're just putting in the school block of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to do me after, which is basically the most restrictive, which is what happens when you have full-time work and a family and you only have 3 hours at night. So what does that look like? I don't think I can fit 15 games in a week, but we'll look at what we can fit in. But so first off, then, if we're going to look at what does a ranked routine look like for someone in school, what time would you put that in? I have it at 4 to 7 right now, but where would you put it?
Yeah, so I mean, speaking from my own experience, because I played a lot of games growing up, pretty much when I was really young. So the way it worked for me is I would finish school, and then as soon as I came home, I would do any homework. So most of the time, I got away with doing homework in school. Like I would do it in between classes or during another class, whatever. But I never spent more than like an hour doing homework. But I think it's reasonable to say you should do your schoolwork before you play your ranked block.
Well, both because you don't want the mental load of whatever things you need to do inhibiting your rank play if you care about this.
Right. So the rank block specifically for me would work best around that 5 to 8 because I like to get back and, like commute times and stuff like that. So I feel like speaking from my experience, that's where it was. I know other people's dinner time is a little bit different. And my parents ate later. Like we would have dinner around 9, maybe 10 some days. If that's not the case for people listening, you would probably consider pushing your rank block even further down.
Like kind of like a 7 to 10 or something.
Right, something like that. So the actual rank block time probably matters less, but for me, I would do a 5 to 8.
And like preferentially, you'd like to do your warm up and then your 3 rank games like in a row. Like you wouldn't want to be like warm up, do 1 rank game if you can, and then have to do dinner and then come back and be cold and then have to warm up again, or just play 2 ranked games cold.
Yeah, at that point, I would probably just not do the initial thing before dinner.
So warm up, like we've talked about, it's probably half an hour for most people, somewhere between 15 minutes and half an hour, whatever you feel like you need, right?
Yeah, there's one of my clients I'm working with now sent me a 5-minute video. It's like like those videos where you watch like you follow along an exercise type of thing, but it's for warming up your for ranked games. Well, warming up to play some type of video game. And it's like 5 minutes of like wrist stretches and wrist circles and stuff like that. And he says it's helped him immensely for his consistency.
Cool.
Now, I don't know if it matters much for people younger, because I know I didn't warm up when I was younger. But now that I'm getting older, I can definitely feel it. The reason why I mention it is maybe part of that warm up is doing some type of like wrist motion like that, even if it's only for like 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes. But I just wanted to add that snippet in there because I do think, at least if I was looking back on it, that's something I would add for sure.
The one thing I can definitely add is that if you do like any type of strength or resistance training, and any of that strength or resistance training like uses your arms, shoulders, hand muscles, if you're training to like failure and you try to play ranked after that, it's like playing without hands. Like you literally like your hands are so shot, like you can't aim. So my thing would be like, don't do that, or give yourself a break if you do strength training and then doing this. Okay, so we've got the 7 to 10 p.m. That's the rank block, including warm up. What else is missing? Like, because the thing that come to mind for me, Adam, are aim training. And when would you like VOD review? And when would you put in server time? So maybe those are maybe the three things. Like, and by server time, I mean custom server time where you're just practicing some lineups and some protocols on around how you would throw, let's say, a haunt or a recon dart or a flash or a smoke or whatever.
Yeah, no, great question. Maybe we'll start with the aim training because I think this is the easiest to supplement. Essentially, I would recommend probably like 30 minutes to an hour for this. Maybe we can just shoot for the 30 minutes.
I'll put 45 of aim training.
And this is pretty much right before you get off. So let's say like your rank block is from 5 to 8. Then you would have that break and then you would do it right before you get off. And then if you are doing it right back to back, then that's fine too. It's basically just to, sign off for the day.
So then you'd go, let's say right now I have 7 to 10, 10 to 10 to 45. Your aim training, you probably actually, if you're going to go to bed at 11, you probably want, I think for most people, they need about like half an hour of wind down. For like maybe for young people, it's not a big deal. But I know for me, like it's actually, if you just like go straight from like hardcore aim training or straight from a rank game, like you can't really fall asleep. You kind of need something chill. And for me, that's actually like a perfect time to like read a book, because then you get to read a book, which is good for your personal growth. And then it's just way less engaging than going on social media.
As for the other stuff you mentioned, the VOD review and the server time, I would say those two are separate. I would say server time might come as like a bonus before your, like as either as part of your warm up or slightly before your warm up. Because, if you're trying to practice your lineups and stuff like that, you need to do that before your game, not after your game. Otherwise it's pointless, right? So maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, or included in your warm up, we can add that server time before your ranked block.
Okay, so maybe that's important to add then. Like, I think for some people, if they feel like they need to be 30 minutes of aim training, or not aim training, like a ramps warm up in aim labs, and then something in game, like a DM or something. But if you feel like you only need a 15-minute warm up in game, then maybe you can add in 10 minutes of server time beforehand, just to throw some lineups, see where you want to play, and create some protocols for yourself.
Yeah. And you mentioned VOD review. Now, I think VOD review is very good and people should be doing it. The hard thing for beginner VOD reviewers is knowing what to look at. So I've been kind of shifting my mindset on VOD reviewing your own games a little bit, and looking more into like getting some type of clipping software and just looking at the last, like that death, for example, like clipping specific deaths and just looking back at that. Now, of course, you lose a lot of context. And if I were to review someone's gameplay, I wouldn't look at clips. I would look at the full game. But for someone that's like beginner, it might be better to just do the clipping and just seeing how it goes. And then you might do the VOD review, say, on the weekends to get a more extensive thing on what you're going to be working on during the school week.
So if you were to actually just look at this, you're coming home, you're commuting, you're going to do a bit of homework, you're going to eat your dinner, and you're going to start your rank block at 7. When would you want to do some VOD review?
Is the clipping, or do you mean
the clipping? Yeah, the clipping.
Yeah, that might be like either in between my rank games, like in my queues. Like, so if I just played a game and then I like clipped 3 deaths while I'm in queue and when I select my agent, I would just look back at those. It doesn't take too long. I do it now. I notice like for me in particular, when I clip, I'm looking more like mechanical things because I feel like my decision making is pretty good. But for those that are getting into this, you could probably look at both. Was my decision there even good in the first place? And then you can kind of like figure out what you want to do. And you're not looking to make like, grand statement adjustments. You're just looking to, keep yourself accountable and things like that. Like, oh, I maybe I shot too early there, or I had a blue bar there. I got to keep that in mind going to this next game.
Actually, I love that idea that it's kind of like in between games. You can take that 5 minutes to just reset, do this instead of rage queue. We do not recommend any rage queuing. You're like, I've lost 2 in a row. Slam, go next.
Please no tilt queue.
But actually, I think I love that as an idea, partly because it's good. It's a good reset. But secondly, because I think, sometimes you lose a game and you're like, I feel like that was totally out of my control. Like there was nothing I could have done. And I feel like if you just go watch your 16 deaths in a game, you're going to see where you're like, man, that was not a good decision. Or, oh, I remember that one. We didn't even look at their economy. I forgot they had like there's a lot of like, you're going to see where the low hanging fruit are that can actually guide maybe what your goal, the 1 or 2 things, kind of process goals you can adopt for the next games.
Yep. Highly agree. I mean, it's very hard to know what's going on in the middle of a round when you're playing the round.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of stuff you're gonna miss. You're gonna be like, oh my god, oh my god, this guy was there. Oh, my teammate was behind me. Oh,
Yeah.
my teammate left me. Like, it's just like you clip it, you look back at it, and it's like, oh, I need more awareness or something. So yeah, what we have on screen, I think, is ideal during the school week.
We'll talk about the weekend after.
Yep.
If this is ideal for the school. Actually, what I wanted to ask was clipping.
Clipping, yes.
What software?
Yeah, so Insights Capture is
Yes.
a separate tool from Insights that I use to Vod review, but Insights Capture is similar to Metal TV, and it will record your whole game. And then when you go back and look at it, it has like the little skull for your death and then a sword for your kills. So that could be a very easy way just to look at your deaths. I actually do use OBS personally. I don't use the recording part. There's this thing that you could set up called replay buffer, which you can set a certain amount of time and then you hit a hotkey and then it'll just go back and capture that last time frame. So for me, I have it set to 90 seconds. So what I'll do is I'll play the game, I'll die, I give it another 5 to 10 seconds for it to go, and then I'll hit my hotkey, which for me doesn't matter, but it's Control-Shift-Z, and then
everyone out there, if you want to be like Dopai or Adam, you can do Control-Shift-Z.
Yeah, and then it'll just capture the last 90 seconds, and then afterward, it's like instant. Like I can open the folder right after, and it's there. Really easy to set up. OBS replay buffer. What you have to do though is you have to make sure you open OBS when you go into your game, and you just have to click Start Replay Buffer, and then that's it.
Oh, so you are basically doing a manual Insights GG.
That is what I'm doing. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why I do it like that. I guess it's just less less performance hit, but whatever.
Well, I guess the other part of this is if you're just looking at these clips and you're using something like Insights, you could probably record it at fairly low quality. You can probably record it at 720p. You probably don't actually need 1440 or 1080.
Right. Yeah.
If this is what if you're just looking at was your crosshair placement good? Were you moving when you're shooting? What were you thinking around positioning, that kind of stuff?
The other thing to use is if you have a NVIDIA graphics card, you've probably heard of Shadowplay maybe, but it's basically OBS replay buffer, but just through NVIDIA stuff like NVIDIA GeForce Experience. So for those that aren't familiar, it's basically NVIDIA's way of applying video settings to your games and updating your drivers, and it also comes with Shadowplay. And then again, you press a hotkey and it saves that amount.
I think that is the lowest overhead in terms of if you're going to fully VOD record your games. And it's actually, I think you need NVIDIA GeForce Experience to do it. So if you don't have that, you'll need to install it.
Yeah. But my personal recommendation is probably to start with either OBS Replay Buffer or Insights Capture, just because I've interacted with the two the most.
Okay. So great. So clipping in between games. And I like that as well in the sense that I feel like VOD reviewing a full 45-minute game, especially if it was a loss, feels like just eating a lot of broccoli. It's just like a lot of vegetables. Like you're like, I know I should do this, but I feel like clipping feels like a nice bite-sized way to do the thing that you're supposed to do, but in a way that doesn't feel like insurmountable. Because I don't think everyone, if you played 3 rank blocks and you're like, okay, I got to VOD review all these games. I don't think anyone's looking forward to VOD reviewing. Basically, I think it's 2 hours, 15 minutes of games.
Yeah, that would be pretty painful, I think. I mean, even me just thinking about it, I'm like, I'm not looking through all that.
Okay, so that's the weekday.
Yeah.
How would you structure the weekend?
So what I'll go ahead and say is ideally, even with just the 5 ranked blocks during the school week, you will probably get your 15 minimum, right? So
Yes, you will get your 15 minimum.
The weekday is looking as a bonus here. Now, what we need to do in the weekend, if you're actually trying to get better, is this is where you would do maybe a more in-depth VOD review. Okay. Now, I would say for majority of people out here, this is probably just going to be 1 hour, maybe 90 minutes, and maybe 2 hours if you're really pushing it.
So let's put 1 hour.
Okay, so let's say 1 hour. You have choices here. You can either VOD review yourself. So if you want to go look at your tracker, look through the last week of games and be like, okay, this game I remember, this one sucked. Or a couple guidelines here. Make sure the game is like 13-8 or closer. That's my typical guideline.
You don't want to watch yourself getting blown out 13-1. You're not going to win a lot. And you also don't want your own 13-2 stomps.
And then...
Okay. What maybe walk us through why you think that is.
Well, I mean, there's probably not going to be much variance in the game. So if you get stomps, nothing that you're doing is working. Either you're doing the same thing and losing, or they comp diff or team diff, or your teammates are throwing, or you have an AFK. There's not, whatever you change, you're not going to win that game, right? And vice versa. Even if you have a 13-2 stomp and you're winning, even if you're intentionally throwing, you probably wouldn't lose that game anyways. Maybe you would, I don't know, but it's unlikely. Whereas if you're playing a 13-8 game and you lost 8-13 or you won 13-8, there's room for influencing the scoreline a little bit more, right? Because like one loss on a round's not always one loss. Like that loss can snowball. So for example, if you lost one round and then they got an ult the next round and then whatever, or you lost that one round and your money is reset and you're on eco, then you lose 2 rounds, it can snowball pretty quickly. So in 13-8 games or 8-13 games, it's good to review to see if what you're doing moved the needle.
Okay.
And if you could move the needle.
I think in the Broken by Concept podcast, they talk about the idea of like a 40-30-40 rule. Or it's 30-40-30, I forget. But it's basically like, let's say 30% of games are auto loses. 30% of games are auto win. Like no matter what you do, you would win. And then 40% of the games in the middle are the games that you could control. And so I think kind of what you're giving us is kind of like a rule of thumb. If it's a 13-8 game or a 13-10 game, those are games you probably could have influenced. Maybe it would have taken a lot of work, but those are games you could have influenced to a win instead of a loss. Instead of looking at the games that you're probably not going to learn as much from.
Right. And you might not learn anything, but it's good to look at those games in particular. It's a good filter.
Okay. And then how would you think about, so there's like VOD reviewing yourself. And then I think there's a lot of benefit in VOD reviewing a pro or someone playing your role at a high level and applying those aspects to your game planning, like leveling up as a player. So like, how would you think about that? Like looking at pros.
This is something that I've been experimenting with my clients as well, trying to sprinkle in some pro VOD reviews. And I think what works best is doing both. And when you're VOD reviewing yourself, you're looking for problems, or you're looking for obstacles, or like things that you're uncomfortable with, like things that you don't have answers for. You might think you have an answer for it, but then if the end result is bad, you want to review it, right? So for example, if I'm playing bind defense and I find myself retaking B a lot, that's a problem, right? So I'm going to go and find a similar game from a pro and be like, how do they solve that B retake problem? And that might take a few VODs to look through. And you're just skimming through the VOD. You're just like slamming through the rounds, just seeing how often they retake B and or if they're retaking B at all, right? And like maybe they're not retaking B because they play more B. Boom, problem solved. You just play more B and you're not playing A as much, right? But like looking at your own VODs in that type of more overview, like you're not looking at your actual gun duels here. I mean, unless I guess that's something you want to work on, you could do that. But generally, I think on the weekend VOD reviews, you might want to look at bigger problems and more macro and map problems, and then look for those solutions in pro reviews. So an example I had for myself and I bring up with my clients is on Lotus. One act I had 6 wins and 20 losses. So that's like a 23% win rate. I was like, that's terrible. So I VOD reviewed my own game. I was like, okay, well, on defense, I'm nading A every single round. That's good, right? I'm fighting for rebel control. And then I'm like, well, the problem is when they go B or C, I don't have nade, and then I'm playing retake, and then I lose the retake, right? So then I was like, okay, well, that's my problem. Let me go, and you can probably see where I'm going with this. Like the answer is kind of obvious looking back in hindsight, but I reviewed some Pro Vods, and I was like, okay, they don't nade A every single round. They don't fight A every single round. If they are A, it's they might just spot for info. They might play stairs, or they're just not A at all. They're playing B or they're playing C. Like there's more variance there. And then that's the one thing I changed. I just stopped nading A every single round, and my win rate went from my worst map, 6 wins, 20 losses, to my best map, next act, 18 wins, 10 losses. And you can check my tracker. You can fact check me.
I believe you, Adam.
Some viewers probably won't. But that's, I think, the best way to go about it. Figure out your problem and then look for a solution in a pro review.
Would you try and do that within an hour? Like you get through your own VOD review in half an hour, go look for the solution?
Yes. I mean, you could even do it on a per half basis. Like I do that sometimes where I'm just like, oh, defense bind feels really bad. Let's look at defense. And then I'll just look for a defense. So
no, I like that. So I think part of that is also if you're playing a certain role or you're maining a character, like already knowing kind of like who you're going to look for, right? Like if you're trying to look for best in class, how to play Aspas, or sorry, I gave it away, but best in class, like jet entries, like you should probably be watching a lot of Aspas, like a lot of something, and you should be just seeing what they're doing. If you're trying to learn how to play Raze, you should be watching lots of Jing.
Yes. Oh, that's a good point too. There's a lot of different play styles within a role. Like you could say objective best, like Jing is probably objectively the best Raze.
Yeah.
But the way he plays Raze might not be easy to replicate. So you might look at, say, someone that matches your playstyle a little bit more. Say a Zekin, I find that is a little bit more not as crazy, you know? So you can kind of get something from that. But just kind of, figuring out those playstyles and seeing who you want to be more like. And I guess I get asked a lot, like, you know, why don't you VOD review Demon 1? Or like, how is Demon 1? Blah, blah, blah. He's a great player. But I can't replicate what he does. He just like face checks angles and he just like brute forces fights. And like when people like multiple people will swing him, he'll kill them, right? He'll take those fights. He won't fall back, etc., etc. Me, I'm not gonna get that second kill. I might even get that first kill. Like I play a lot more util oriented, util first as a playstyle, and he's kind of like a util second type of guy. So I personally don't watch Demon 1 at all to mimic my gameplay.
Well, and I guess that makes sense for him. If he knows that his skill set is such that he can win most of the mechanical duels, right? Then he gets to save all his util for when he absolutely needs it, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to for most people, which is we want the util to positively influence our gunfights. But when you're just like a man amongst boys, like Demon 1 is, then you don't need your util.
Yeah.
You just dry swing and win.
You dry swing, or you play like a nice angle. Yeah.
Okay.
He's insane.
So I've got this Saturday, I've got this 3-hour rank block. It's kind of floating in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking there's maybe like 2 rank blocks on a Saturday if you can swing that. But like, what are you thinking here?
So VOD review would go first, 100%.
Okay. When would you start your day? Let's say people are like free until lunch, because I feel like maybe you should go do some exercise or something.
So yeah, start with VOD review. You probably don't want to jump directly into your ranked block. I would probably say after your VOD review, you might want to do a little bit of server time. This would be a good, even if you're just like walking through the map and like solidifying your thoughts. People are going to skip this step, but you shouldn't. If anything, this is probably more important than your ranked block on the weekend anyways. But
yeah, I think this is like, there's so many times in your game where you're like, oh, I forgot that lineup.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, I don't really have time in these 5 seconds to go grab the YouTube video and try the lineup. You kind of just need it to be automatic.
It needs to be. And the other thing with server time too is like, it doesn't have to just be lineups. Like you can figure out how you're going to do a certain flood. Like going up to the bind example, if I'm playing retake B, or like I'm rotating from A to B and my teammate is alive on site still, I'm going to be running through that smoke. So what am I going to do when I'm running through that smoke?
Yeah, where are you coming out of that smoke? Which angles are you peeking first?
Do you use util first? Like I know firsthand, as I'm rotating through CT as Raze, I have a nade that I'm throwing through CT. So by the time I'm running out of the smoke,
Which
the
map
nade is
is
already
this?
popping. Bind defense.
Going into B.
Going into B, yes.
Okay.
So there's that like little V when you're rotating. As
Yeah.
I'm exiting the V on the right side, I'm throwing the nade over the top.
Yeah. And where's that landing?
It's landing front sight, or if I run
front of the tube.
front of the tube, or if I run and jump throw, it's gonna land right outside the long choke. So
Like just outside of octagon.
just outside of octagon, exactly. And I know this because I've servered it, right? Like I saw Jing do both. I was like, okay, that's weird. Why does he have two different ones, right? And he has a mini map cover, so I can't see anything.
Just based on the sight hit. So if they're just flooding, you're throwing the octagon one. If you're trying to like do some damage to someone on default plant, it's front box.
Yeah, and the front box one gets the guy sitting on the top tube angle, and that's very lethal. Yeah, when you're running out of spawn smoke, the top tube guy is super annoying. So, I mean, you can tell, like, I've done this flood so many times, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's what that server time on the weekend is for. Because I know for a fact you guys don't know how to flood smokes because I didn't know how to flood smokes, right? You're probably just running through the smoke and you're like, oh, yeah, let me just look left, or let me just look right. Or maybe you're reading the mini map and you're actually trying to do your best. You don't have that pattern that you're trying to apply because you haven't done it in the server time before.
Well, and as you talk about that, like it just makes me think about like just that server time, like how much you're leveling up by doing that. Like if you have this confidence in this nade you're throwing that it's putting tons of pressure on the guy top tube and you swing that guy, like you feel so much more in control of this bad situation, which is retake beyond bind, right? But that's so much better than like, okay, I'm gonna just kind of make up a nade and hope it lands somewhere and then swing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is really important to know for recon initiators specifically. I know I talked about it in the context of Raze, but like when you're going on a flood play, you need your dart to scan the stuff that you need it to scan. So like you could intentionally smoke yourself off, or maybe you have a buddy go into the server with you and smoke yourself off so you can see the dart and see what it scans. Like it's insane to me that people in high levels, like I will see Immortal 3s or like whatever, that like players that I work with throw util that is on the fly. I'm like, you should have this, right? Like you need to know this.
There's some util that you always have to make up
Correct.
as you go along, but like your standard retake or your standard like when someone's flooding your site or executing on your site, like which you should have a protocol on which util you're throwing.
Yeah, there's I'm glad that you said the protocol. There's very simple strats you're playing against. So like on a map, like let's just use Haven for example, and you're playing defense. There's the standard default. So you need to know how to play a default on defense. You need to know how to play to stop any rush. So if you're playing A, you need anti-rush setup or like anti-rush protocol on A, on B, and on C. And then you need to know how to flood onto those sites if you're supporting your A anchor. So let's say you're playing B and they went A, then you need to know how you're going to help your A player. And if you're playing B and they're going C, you need to know how to help your C player, right? And that's what your server time is for. You need to know the protocols and all the common patterns and the basic patterns on those maps. And like if you don't know that, then like that's probably the best way to start.
So we've got our VOD review, we've got our server time, we've got a rank block with warm up. You probably go for a break for dinner and then do a second rank block and then aim training and go to bed.
Yeah, I would say the second rank block is definitely a bonus, right? Any rank block on the weekend is a bonus.
Yeah. I feel like the second rank block, if that's going to be 2 games instead of 3, I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah. I'd say that's fair. And then re-warm up, by the way. People are just like, oh yeah, I played earlier today. I don't have to warm up again. Definitely warm up again. Yeah. And not just one deathmatch. Like do what you did earlier in the day and do it again.
So that feels pretty good. I mean, you got to have some slack in your schedule. We can't plan everything. But I think
100%.
If you were able to do this, and even just do it on Saturday, you don't have to do it on Sunday. Or maybe you can split this over Saturday and Sunday. I think, what's your opinion, Adam? Like, do you think this would really support improvement in players?
100%. I mean, the fact that there is some type of reflection built into this routine is already, and the fact that there's aim training and warm up. Like, I mean, you got to think about who you're who you're trying to outpace your competitors or peers per se.
Hmm.
They're probably just playing ranked and then mindlessly playing, and that's why they're hard stuck for 1,000 games, right? So the way to not reach that plateau or like delay that plateau or not reach it at all, which you will reach a plateau at some point, is to do the aim training and have the review. So
Hmm.
I think this will postpone it as long as possible.
There's this, I was reading this article. Obviously, like most baseball players come from America, Central America and that stuff, and obviously Japan. But there is one prospect that might go in the top five, might even go first, and he's Australian, which is like not a big baseball nation, right? And they said this guy like eats and sleeps baseball to the point where like now baseball is like super advanced. They'll track pitches, they'll track spin rate, they'll track like, oh, this guy's curveball moves like, you know, 8 centimeters or whatever. But this guy is so dialed into all of this and he's like worked it into his batting that like as he's like walking up to the batter's box, he's like, "Hey, how much does this guy's slider break?" And they're like 12 centimeters. And he's like, "Great." And he's like literally calibrating his swing to like hit 12 centimeters of break or whatever it is, right? And it just goes to show like if you really want to improve at this stuff, you can either hope that you're Naruto and that you're just there's like a little Zekin inside of you waiting to break out, right? But for the rest of us mortals, if you want to improve, it's just like through the work to improve that literally like you're pointing out. I think everyone until Radiant probably isn't doing any of this, right?
There's this makes me think about it's like kind of like a curse for like younger people growing up now because they see the younger people breaking into the scene, right? Like for example, people reference Benji Fishy, like
Or
this
Woot.
or Woot and or Oxy, and like these guys probably didn't VOD review. Like these are like talented young individuals that kind of popped into the scene by playing the game, right? And some people can't just play the game and essentially brute force. That's kind of where the talent comes in, or maybe they're just like, I don't know, like something. They're doing it without doing these things, so you might think that you don't have to do these things. If you're not that type of person, you have to do something else, right? Like, I guess that's my point. I think
Yeah.
that's like so sad to see.
Hoping that you are somehow genetically gifted is not really a plan, right?
Yeah.
Like LeBron James at like 18 looks like a grown man. He looks like the body of like someone that was like in their late 20s that had worked out all of their life, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
that's great in that like he just demolished kids in high school. But like that doesn't work. Like that's not a plan, Like you can just hope for that. Because if that was what you have, you'd already know it.
You got to play with the cards that you're dealt. You've heard that before. People listening have heard that before, but like I know I didn't internalize it, and I know like people that are in this school schedule that this is made for, you probably are comparing yourself and whatever. You just have to do what you can do, right?
Well, in your unique context, the things that you have, the skills and the strengths that you have, hoping that you're someone else is never a good strategy. Like understanding who you are, appreciating those skills and figuring it out for yourself. Like I can say this, I feel like I didn't feel fully confident in myself until like my early 30s. Like I don't think I fully understood myself. Like we don't fully understand ourselves, right? And so part of this is just like learning who you are, what your strengths are, because your approach to things will change. I remember like in my old work, like sometimes I would do negotiations. I still don't like negotiations. But like this idea of negotiation is this thing of like, okay, I'm going to have to be like that alpha person that basically coerces, manipulates the other person to get my point of view. And I realized like, that's like 100% like not me. So what I'm going to do is actually instead of being this like big personality and trying to be someone I'm not, I'm just going to do what I feel comfortable with. It's just researching every possible option, having tons of reasoning and like a reasonable stance for why they should come to my side of the table and feeling comfortable with that approach. And I feel like fundamentally, like it meant that often I would get to the same result, but I get to the same result in a way that honored who I am and actually in a way that I felt like was more human, like wasn't like trying to just make someone else feel bad and feel small. Like they could feel comfortable coming my way because I was giving them reasons to feel comfortable. And I think that for me was like the first time I was like, oh, like the way I do things is going to be the way I do things, and that's part of life is like trying to figure that out. And I think similarly here, exactly like kind of like that gunfight percentage conversation we had a couple weeks ago. Like if you do this work, you're going to figure out what it looks like for you to be really good at this game.
And I guess we should add on to that, like this obviously is just a blueprint routine. You should change it based on what you think works for you. But, you know, this is it's a guiding routine that hopefully will get people on the right track.
Yeah. And I think you're going to try, like, I would say you should try to lay something out like this for yourself, test it out, see how it feels. Is it feel like too much? Okay, then take away the weekends and just do the VOD review, right? And the server time, right? Like, or do you feel like you'd like to even do it even more? Okay, like maybe not too much more because I think this is already a lot, but like maybe you add in the Sunday, right? Maybe it's one more rank block on Sunday. But I think actually in the other part of this is just thinking about your health. Like where are you going to add in like a workout or a walk or a run? Like we always meme about, or people always meme about touching grass. Like you do need to touch grass. Like you should be doing something that allows your body to stay physically healthy. Like you don't have to be going to do CrossFit, but there should be some element in here, like maybe Saturday and Sunday morning, of doing some amount of exercise for yourself, just for your long-term health. Okay, I'm going to skip to mine.
Yep.
Easier. Okay, because this is actually like literally for me. Okay, so Friday I can't do it. Friday's date night. I'm out with my wife, so that's date night. Okay, and then let's say I've got one other night that's a workout and work. I don't. What would you? How would you fill up my schedule if I just have these 4 to 5 nights free?
Yeah. So I mean, what we can immediately look at is we have sections here, so we could section it out into, I guess, improving and then performing. So
Okay.
in a way, you kind of have a little cheat code here. So I would say, I mean, it looks like we have Sunday, Saturday, and Monday kind of in one, and then Wednesday, Thursday as another. Just kind of going about it here. So dealer's choice here, but I would say you spend like the 2 days, like this is where you get most of your, say, VOD review or aim training, all that done.
So Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, sure. Let's do Wednesday, Thursday, and then
Okay.
like Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Those are your ranked blocks, and you're just trying
I
to
like
get
that.
the reps in.
Okay, so then I would do, let's say, VOD review 1 hour
On the Wednesday, yeah.
on the Wednesday, and then I would do server time.
Like a minimum like thing that we can maybe consider doing on like the days that you have time. So like the 5 days that's consistent is like some type of, not like warm up routine, but like that type of flavor where you're getting some time in the game. Maybe that would even include like swift plays. I don't know, but
Okay.
I would say like if you like whatever the minimum amount would be, to me that in my head the number that comes up is like 30 minutes. So like maybe you're in the range for 5 minutes and then you play DM for 5 to 10 minutes and then you just play some swift plays. I don't know, but at least
Okay.
that way you get
So I can
some
just
time in the game.
stay like acclimatized to the game.
Yeah, because like, you know, when you take a break from the game and you come back, it feels like it takes a little bit of coming back into the game, and I can say that for my personal experience for sure.
Okay, so let's say my like improvement block is Wednesday, Thursday, and it's VOD review, server time, some aim training, and some swift plays DM.
Sure, that sounds good.
And then I think on the Saturday, Sunday would just be a rank block. And so if I did this, let's say I would get 9 games in a week.
It's not bad. Thursday though, like let's see. So if we're doing the VOD review server time on Wednesday, maybe Thursday would be more of a mechanical heavy day. You could even move the aim training from Wednesday to Thursday and just have a longer swift play DM session on Wednesday, and then just have like a longer aim training type of thing happening on Thursday. And then that way, like in your brain, you're like, okay, Wednesday is more of like a lighter, less game time day, but more review, like brain time stuff.
Okay.
And then Thursday is more mechanical.
Sorry, I was moving stuff around. So what's Thursday then?
Yeah, so it's a longer aim training block. I would say like this is 45 minutes. You might even just do 45 minutes, and then you would have another 45 minutes of some type of mechanics thing, which is, you know, again, dealer's choice here. But if you want, you could like just do 45 minutes of DM or 45 minutes of DM and TDM, you know, something of like in-game training, because we can't really ignore that aspect of it. And then after that, you can do your swift plays and DMs as well.
Maybe this could actually be I would say maybe we could do that and then one ranked game.
Sure, sure. And then you can
Because this is
squeeze
kind
in
of
that
like a
10th.
pseudo. This is like pseudo warm up / training.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so like VOD review, server time. Cool. That feels pretty good. I
At
like
least
it.
they'll get you 10 games in. It's not in the 15, but you're 2/3 of the way there.
Not quite. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But double digits. Got to
Yeah.
get to those double digits.
Yeah, you gotta get the double digits. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything you feel like we need to add to this conversation before we sign off?
I guess like what we're not trying to do is optimize for perfection. We're just trying to optimize for longevity, like
Yeah.
not burnout, but like for improvement. So
Yeah, we want you to have a healthy relationship with the game. We want it to be structured and where you can actually find a way to improve. Like I think you'll see those posts sometimes on Reddit where you're like, "Oh, I spent like 2,000 hours and I'm in Iron 1." Okay? Like I can guarantee you if you try to follow this type of framework, you can't spend 1,000 hours and be in Iron 1.
yeah, I mean, I guess like that also might be some setup limitations too. Like maybe they're playing on 5 FPS
With
I
a
don't know.
potato for a mouse.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully not.
Playing with the trackpad. Actually, someone said I remember I saw a comment once where they're like, "Oh, I think I made it's like immortal with a trackpad or like ascendant with
Wait,
a
really?
trackpad." It's pretty
It's actually
interesting.
insane.
Insane. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this episode. We hope this was helpful. We always love all the comments. So if you find this enjoyable, please like, subscribe on YouTube, or send this to your friends. And until next time, have a great week.
Peace out.